Welcome, everyone, to Meetings and Miles. I'm Pamela, and this is my co host, Mark. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Pamela. I did a little virtual golf on the weekend, which I haven't done in quite a few years, and it was a lot of fun. It was a great way to get the golf clubs out in the middle of winter and hit a few. I played terribly, but that's really not the point. Really quite enjoyed it. And how have you been, Pamela?
I've been great. I just got back from several weeks of travel, which were fantastic. I went from extremes to the snow and cold to the sunny, warm. It was really great. I had a little bit of a mix of business and leisure, which I know is your favorite thing. And she said sarcastically, lots of lessons learned. And I'm really excited to share for future episodes.
Wow, I'm looking forward to it. I saw some of your Instagram posts, and yeah, it sounds like a bit of a harrowing experience at the end there. So we will definitely have to touch on that. But today, we've got a brilliant guest, someone that you've known for a number of years, right, Pamela? Maybe tell us a little bit about our guest today.
I've known Thomas Mauch for a couple years now, at least, but it feels like a lifetime, honestly. He's just such a lovely human being. We met in the business events industry. He's a true global citizen, has traveled a lot. He's based in the Netherlands, so European based. So lots of perspective from that standpoint. And recently, he's the 50 most influential venue professionals. So award winning as well.
Wow, that's so cool. Without further ado, let's get right into the interview.
We're very excited to have Thomas Mauch here today to join us. Welcome, Thomas.
Yeah, thank you for having me here, Pamela. Really excited for what's in store.
Excellent. And we always like to ask initially, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I would like to call myself a sort of third culture kid, global citizen, whatever you would like to label it as. I am originally from South Africa, but my parents immigrated from Germany. So fortunate to have both passports. It allowed me to both explore Africa and now Europe and the rest of the world. Originally from South Africa, moved over to the UK in 2009 after working in South Africa for some time in hotels and the hospitality industry. I then pursued various roles within the C&E sector, working extensively then in the event sector towards my end of my time in the UK after 15 years, and decided to pursue an opportunity in Amsterdam, where I then have now been actually to the day now entering my third year. So
Amazing.
2 years today. I decided to pursue an opportunity in a convention center, which was far larger than what I was used to in terms of my skills and my sort of previous experience. And that sort of opened a huge door in terms of my international network and so forth. And then subsequently now have been, as of January this year, 2025, I've been the regional director for a membership organization called ICA and representing the European sort of region. So myself and a colleague share that. We've got over 500 members within that region. So it is best divided than individually conquered. We see a need so that we can best service our members and improve the sort of members' experiences, and obviously share knowledge from our industries. And that's where I currently am at. And my sort of, if you can call it, my travel experience is going to start imminently for this organization.
Just for our audience, can you explain what the CNE sector is, please?
Oh, yes, certainly. So that's the conference and event sector.
Ah,
A pretty broad title for the industry. I mean, that encompasses anything from, weddings to bar mitzvahs to corporate meetings and everything. So, yeah, I sort of gravitated more towards the business event sector, predominantly the association sector. So that is where I found sort of my tribe, for a lack of a better word. I really do resonate with that. It's a more relationship building opportunity rather than a transactional relationship. You get to know your clients and your partners and your sort of industry peers on a more personable level. And I just feel more at home with that versus a more corporate environment where it's filling seats and putting seats on buns, really. So I see it as a facilitation role rather than a sales role.
What business sector has the wildest conferences?
Oh, uh, if I could say the gambling industry, like the gambling, so
Oh,
sort of the B2B gambling side. So, let's say the casual gaming industry, that has got some of the wildest stuff going on. I don't want to go into the
No, that's
details,
fair.
but
Yeah.
I've seen some stuff.
You've
And it's
seen
been
some
interesting.
things.
yeah.
But I will say there's been an industry association, it's a European association, and they had a influencer at one of their exhibitions, and that was one of the wildest things I've seen recently at an association congress where they actually had an influencer with more than 1 million followers on
Oh, wow.
Instagram, and we actually had
Oh.
to manage the exhibition floor in such a way that people weren't able to, like, everyone wanted to congregate to this one stand because they had this influence, and we had to actually manage it with security and so forth, so that they could get that the people could visit other stands as well. But the queue was mad. It was crazy how, and it was a new way of thinking about it, getting influences in events.
Incredible. And being a global citizen and with all of your roles has taken you with an international network that leads to a lot of airports. Do you have a favorite one?
So I'm going to put this in two categories. If I can answer on a local note, I would say the European, the best one, I would say definitely has to be Schiphol
Oh, nice.
in
Ah,
Yeah, I
Amsterdam.
like that one.
Just how it's got a real experience to it. It's got like local artists that are exhibiting there. There's this what do you call it? This clock where the guy's painting and squeegeeing away the clock every minute, and it's an animation that's just constantly moving over a 12-hour period. So that installation in itself is just crazy cool. But it's just also a very efficient airport in the sense that it's well laid out and so forth. But in terms of global, and I experienced this, and this will make you happy, Pamela, is Toronto was,
mm,
as an international visitor coming from the US into Canada, I passed through the Canadian Border Patrol far quicker than a local did. And I was like,
interesting.
wow, okay. And I was just blown away on how efficient it was and how incredibly quick it was to be processed as an international arrival from the States into Canada. So I was really, really impressed by that. So for me, that was really, even thanked them on LinkedIn to say, well done. Uh,
Wow.
a close
Amazing.
second to Schiphol, but
Yeah.
if I have to be honest, as a global airport, I would say Toronto Pearson was really, yeah, really good.
But see, Pamela, efficiency is key in business travel.
Yeah,
Indeed.
I love to hear that, to get a good Canadian airport shout out. And then another question that we like to ask is how many countries have you visited, if you do know the answer to that?
So countries, I cannot give you a definitive number, but I do have the number of airports, and that was sitting at the time from 2009, since I started my, let's say, journey as a business events traveler and doing this for my industry, 52 airports in total.
Oh, yeah.
um,
Impressive.
which equates to about 24 different airlines that I've flown with. I don't want to say the numbers or the distances because that will directly, I think, negatively impact my sustainability scores. But
Yes, yeah.
yeah, over 2009 to now, 52 airports with 24 airlines. And I would say I'm happy that I've managed to do an A380, which
Nice.
being discontinued. And I've actually started collecting these, they're called aviation tags. So they're like
Okay.
What's
metal
that?
that they cut out of the planes that are being decommissioned. So you can
Oh,
buy a part of the plane as a collector's item. And if you've flown on that airline before and it's been decommissioned, you can actually find out if they have that part of that airplane, and then you can still um, purchase these tags. So they're like one of 1,000 or one of 15,000 cuts. So it's
that's
quite a cool
super
little
cool.
novelty item that I collect.
That's incredible. And Mark and I both have aviation backgrounds, so you're really speaking our language
Oh,
right
cool.
now,
I'll send
our
you the
love
link.
language.
It's called
Okay.
aviation tag, and they just literally from these planes that are being decommissioned from, let's say they start their journey at Qantas and then go from there to another airline, and they sort of
Yeah.
make their journey down the road. Yeah, they give you the whole history as like a little at the back of the tag. And yeah, the last livery that it wears, let's say EasyJet would be orange, it will then have that orange livery on it,
Mm.
but a portion of it. So yeah, it's quite cool.
Fantastic. That's excellent. A thing that comes up for us now too is, do you have any favorite travel stories or memorable travel stories?
Okay. Well, I mean, my first time to the States was actually hard to believe that it was in 2023.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yes, and that surprised a lot of people. And my first trip was to Atlanta to actually go to ASAE, which is an
Mm.
association expo and educational event. And it was in Atlanta, and people were so surprised as to my first interaction with the United States was Atlanta, which begged the question was, if you could not go to any touristy destination within your first visit to the States, New York, Miami, any of those high visited places, Las Vegas, etc., where would you suggest to go? And I just, everyone was sort of flabbergasted because people are quite devoted to their cities. So someone came up with
Mm.
Portland and someone came up with Chicago. But for me, Chicago isn't really it's a visited city. It's not a city that is not, it's not the lesser known. But
Mm.
there were some destinations that came out there, and they were just really surprised that I came to Atlanta as my first journey. And I was really impressed by the hospitality and all of that. But yeah, memorable stories. I mean, yeah, let's start off with my experience with Turkey and being in Istanbul. I would say that, excuse me, it would be do your research first. I was the unfortunate candidate of just taking the first taxi after a long flight to then all of a sudden just choose a provider that was standing at the tourism booth. And as they were asking me to pay the lira, the machine that takes the credit card payment didn't accept it, and I had to put my PIN into another machine. Turns out that they switched it from lira to euro, and that exponentially increased my fare rate by 1,000 amount. So I was
Oh.
basically, yeah, driven. I mean, it almost cost me the same amount to fly there and drive for like a 30-kilometer journey. It cost me on my taxi journey. So basically, got to the airport hotel, well, to the hotel, and I couldn't pre-authorize my credit card anymore because it was almost
Ah.
exhausted of funds, and had to get the police involved. They mediated a response between me and the taxi organization, and we managed to get, I would say, three-quarters of the fund returned. And bless the police, they said, "Do you want us to pursue the full amount or a portion?" I said, "I'm not disputing a service has been rendered. I'm just disputing the amount that has been charged."
Yeah.
And they managed to get me my, let's say, three-quarters of the fare back. But I would say, and no disjustice to Istanbul. It's a fantastic city. I'll be back there again. But I'm a lot more aware of researching, or at least walking an additional 50 meters just to see the taxis outside. Because
Mm.
the legitimate taxis were literally 50 meters outside, because I was traveling in this lovely bus that was fully illuminated with LED lighting and music that was going for days. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I realized, yeah, that I'd obviously been rinsed. But
But
yeah,
you bring up a great point. I've seen that at not just in Istanbul, but a lot of airports around the world. There's that taxi that's there early on, which is I've
Mm.
learned the hard way is quite often not the best deal.
no.
Mhm.
So yeah, just be patient, I think, and that was early on in my sort of, let's say, journey. I mean, it's a rolling joke with all my peers in the industry because everyone's like, "Yeah, you that guy in Istanbul, we heard about you," and I still hear about it now, and I'm like, "Who are you?" um,
Yeah.
So it is funny, and yeah, but at the same time, I would say also travel stories is like, that same year I went to Bangkok, and for me, I immediately identified that this is a city that just is gridlocked, and I thought, you know what, let me just try it out and use Bolt and get a motorbike. And this guy stops in front of me and he's like, "Get on." I was like, "Oh, okay, where's the helmet?" And no helmet there. And we were just zooming through the traffic. It took me 7 minutes to get to where I needed to versus half an hour. And it cost me like 80 euro cents for a journey that was in England or in
Wow.
anywhere else would be a couple of, like maybe 20 euros. So it was really cheap to do it. And yeah, the funniest was I actually, at a moment, a scooter stopped in front of me, and he had his daughter standing there in front, him behind her driving the thing, and then he tells me to get on the back of the scooter, and I was like, dude, but you've got already a fully occupied vehicle here. And he's just like, no, come, we're driving now. And it was really like, okay. But yeah, it's all about embracing the local culture, I would say.
Yes, you bring up so many things with this because I like that idea of really having the local experience and taking advantage of that and seeing the city from a different angle and still getting you from point A to B and you're there on business, but you just get a little bit extra with it.
Yeah, yeah. And that brings me also, I mean, experiencing local cultures and stuff. I mean, I am a firm believer as deviating away from the Congress path a little bit. San Diego, I went for like a run in the morning, and I sort of
Mhm.
decided to go midtown rather than staying in the Gaslamp district and stuff and do a bit of a exploration tour. And it was interesting to see because in some ways, when you turn these congresses, they shelter you a little bit from the real world, if you wish. And
Mhm.
by doing these, let's say, activities, even if it's on a Lime scooter or on a run or something, just to explore a little bit of the city, you get to see a little bit more of it. Um, Otherwise, it just feels like it's a bit made up. I feel like it feels it's showing off only the
Yeah.
best of the city. And I'm not saying that every city, like there are elements of yeah, you will see it when you go outside those sort of
Mhm.
boundaries a little bit. And I had that experience in multiple cities across the globe where you just go a bit for a run and you're like, oh, okay, well, this it's not bad, but you can see that there is some disparity of what I've been shown and then what is
Mhm.
actually the real world there. And yeah, so I do say, like for me, I do that all the time. Is I sort of go a bit away from like the areas that they say, and you find some good nuggets as well. Eh? You do find some
Yes,
Awesome.
hidden gems too.
You
I
mentioned
do.
going for a run. Do you have a health and wellness routine on the road?
So I follow a guy called Stephen Bartlett. He is a entrepreneur that did a Dragon's Den in the
Oh,
UK, and he travels extensively. And 2 years ago, he actually posted his routine, which I'm not emulating the routine, but he went to Dubai for 24 hours. Then after that, he went to Cape Town for 48 hours. Then he went to London for 18 hours, and then to New York for 48 hours, all in a short
Wow.
period. And he was just and I follow this sort of what he says, and he says that you're losing about 8 ounces of water or 250 mil of water for every hour that you're in a plane.
hmm.
Wow.
So that is a lot of dehydration that happens.
Yeah.
So for those that are calming their nerves with like a diuretic or alcohol, yeah,
Yeah.
you're just dehydrating yourself. So it's no wonder that on a 12-hour or a 10-hour journey from, let's say, east west or west to east, that you're feeling a bit crappy after a flight. You know, that you're feeling a
Yeah.
bit muggy and groggy and stuff, especially if you laying a foundation of, let's say, beer or wine or cocktail or champagne. You know,
That's me.
and I mean, I do the same, but at the same time, it's no wonder that you feel rubbish when you get there and that you struggle to sleep. So for
Yes.
me, even when I'm flying from, say, Europe to the States, my sort of thing is to try and stay awake as long as possible because
Mhm.
you're just going to disrupt your sleep cycle and stuff. Hydrate, so definitely sit
Yes.
there in water and just be constant on it. Yes, you can have your pre-drinks at the airport, but then once you're on the plane, I'm also that guy that doesn't like going to the toilet either. So I'm the guy that sits
Yes.
there and I'm stuck for 8 hours.
I
But
hear that. Yeah.
but for me, it's yeah, for me, it's become sort of quite important not to sustain yourself with alcohol on a flight and stuff.
Mm.
You're on business at the same time, so for the same thing as just to try and be bright and chirpy when you arrive.
Mhm.
Getting to the States in the afternoon, you need to still spend some time exploring and checking in and all of that. So you burn some of that, to get to the nighttime period. And for me, yeah, it's either hitting the gym or just
Mhm.
getting some light footwork in or leg work or something just to get the blood flowing is important. And I also choose my hotels with the fact of the facilities that they have. So
Mm.
nothing sucks more than having just a free weight space where there's nothing. It's literally the most
Mm.
ignored part of the hotel experience. And they say they've got a gym. For me, I really want to have a a proper facility where you can actually do something. And if it doesn't, well, then you'll need to go for a run. But then you better hope that
Yeah.
it's a destination that facilitates that. Nothing, not like Norway in the middle of December, where you have to put ski shoes on or
Right.
something.
Yeah, so I love that. So there's like hydration, managing your sleep, and getting your workouts in. And it's also worth noting that you and I have met on the odd fun run as well. So I love that you partake in those when events offer them.
Oh, definitely. Just one thing is that he mentions here, don't go for foods that are going to give you a glucose spike, which I do agree with.
Mm,
So, like, people do like to tuck into a pack of crisps or something, and that's going to immediately elevate that. But then you immediately hit that like low period too. So there is elements to that I think are really pivotal. But for me, yeah, the fun runs that we do, like the
mhm.
IMAX or even ASAE, PCMA, IBTMA, I don't know, they don't do one, no. But even like the smaller chapter events that we're attending now, they all incorporating some form of a run walk. And that also
Mhm.
allows you to network. I think it's not just about running
Mm,
and getting out there and being active, but I think it's an opportunity for, especially in our industry, a lot of our business we say we do indoors, but it's we all know secretly it happens outside of the convention space. So be that after a social activity or be that in the morning when you're going for the fun run, it's always nice to meet, because not everyone likes to go out afterwards. So I'm one of
mhm.
those that burn both sides. So I'll go to bed at late or early,
Well
but
done.
then I
Yeah.
will be out there at 7 in the morning or 8 for that run. I'm dying inside, but it's part of it. Die for 4 days of intense work, socially
Yes.
and business wise, but you've made the right connections and you've made really meaningful connections.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying not everyone's cup of tea, but I do think that exercise is important, and I do think that that is a big catalyst to enjoying traveling as well. I'm not saying you need to be a diehard gym fanatic,
Mm,
but it's just movement and being out there, because the convention centers are full of aircon. It messes with you. It's not by no means healthy in my
mhm.
eyes. And I feel just being able to explore. And I think the narrative should not just be a fun run. I think it should be
Mm.
at least it's, I don't want to say fun walk or run walk activity, but
Right.
it
Right.
feels that you're compartmentalizing people that can only run to
Mhm.
join the activity, and we should make it more inclusive in that sense to say, okay, let's do it as let's just say an outdoor activity. For those that want to run,
Yeah.
please go ahead and run. Do your 5K in sub 30 or whatever. But then if you want to just have a walk and a natter and enjoy the morning air, this is
Yes.
also for you. And yeah, and that's what I think needs to be a little bit more prominent, because I see it more as people are doing yoga sessions, or what do you call
Mm,
it? What is it, like light therapy? And there's all these new
mm,
things that are coming in. But generally, outdoor stuff is still quite popular, but making it inclusive in that sense of saying,
yes.
join in on this run walk activity, because then it speaks to everyone rather than just the athletes, if you wish.
Absolutely. And I think the event that you hosted in Vegas, I had that element to it that I remember there being walker and runners or a hybrid. Maybe you had
Yeah,
a late night and you're doing both.
no, true, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's super important, and that's the IMAX Vegas run, and I actually that's good that you mentioned that, because I actually prior to that there was a hike that was happening up in Red Rock, so I'd never
Mm,
experienced Vegas before, and it is a very overwhelming city and a very
mhm.
yeah. Someone that suffers from ADHD, it's just overwhelming on all levels, noise, light,
Yeah.
everything. And prior to IMEX happening in Vegas, I took this hike out to Red Rock Canyon, which was facilitated by one of
Mm,
the destinations. And it was so good actually to be able to see Vegas in a different light, seeing it actually for its natural beauty. And this is once
mhm,
again going back to going outside of where the confines of the Congress and the conventions happen, and
mm,
I feel that that really gave me a different outlook on Vegas, because I felt that this was so overwhelming, but there's such beauty outside of that strip that it's just immense. And yeah, I went for that hike and it was beautiful. And that's another thing. In a destination, you could do hiking, you could do city navigation tours,
yes.
something else, but just get people out there and enjoying the city. And yeah, walking is just as healthy as running, just it's movement that is the healthy thing at the end of the day. That's
Yes.
I'll say
You're
that's fantastic. You mentioned how a lot of the work gets done outside of the business
mm.
meetings, and Pamela was telling me all about your networking skills. So what tell me, Thomas, what is the key to good networking in your opinion?
I think it's partly just be authentic. I think it's be who you are. I think there's no need to, yeah, obviously we want to impress people, but just be who you are. Obviously be courteous, be professional when the situations need to be in that situation. If I'm out and I'm at a piano bar and I'm having a beer and I'm not going to all of a sudden just change, this is my downtime too. And we all understand that we've been busy the whole day, and yeah, it's just talk about other things as well. We're not here to just talk about shop. We also want to know what makes you tick. I see you at every other event. This is the opportunity, and I'm not saying let your guard down. Yes, just
Mm.
but you be true to who you are, and that's where I find my strength is being able to just be Thomas, be able to just be. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I might seem like a social butterfly, but there's moments where I come into a situation and I'm just like, I need to suss it out. I'm standing against the wall, I'm looking at who's there, who can I quickly, what are quick wins, just who do I know in a room, quickly say hi, and that person might introduce you to three other people. Assess, but then also just be authentic. I find it's so important. There's so many times that people are trying to impress someone that it might be a client, and the the time might come where the client be like, you know what, you could loosen up a little bit. Stop being such a stiff. Like just loosen up. Do you party? They want to know who we are. And
Mhm.
I think the biggest thing is that people buy from people, and it's not that we're in a sales game all
Mhm.
the time, but we're
Mhm.
in a game of authenticity, and people want to know who they actually speaking to. And I think that is the biggest thing, is that people know I'm Thomas. People know I've got Pixel, my dog. People know that I will upload my runs on Instagram or do something, something crazy. But they know who I am. And I've had this discussion in this debate. Do I keep my Instagram for private and have another one for business?
Mhm.
I'm like, no, because that's not who I am.
Mhm.
I want people to see who I am on all walks. And if you obviously don't want to see all of that, then fine, you can skip my story or not like my post. But at the end of the day, it's what I like to do. I just love to connect people. I love to inspire people. If it's about the business event sector or something that I'm passionate about on my current ADHD high, that I'm really finding AI like the thing right now, and then 2 weeks later I'm pursuing something in autonomous robotics or something. Something that I'm like, one day I'm figuring out this, and the next day I'm figuring out that. So yeah, and also be interested. I think also be interested.
Yeah. And I think you said it earlier too, it's the long-term relationship game at the end of the
Correct.
day. Yeah. No,
And
that's fantastic.
it's super interesting, and it's long term, yes, but also, yeah, I mean, first impressions last too. And I think
Mm.
authenticity, it's like when in that first 3 seconds, people can see that you're sincere, that you're honest, that you are, relatable or something. And, I was not shy to tell people I had epilepsy. I wasn't shy to tell people I've got ADHD. We've all got problems, we've all got something. But yeah, opening up about that only starts making that a more of a talked about topic. And when I talked about my epilepsy, people said, "Oh goodness, I've got a family member who had this and this and this." And through that already a dialogue starts, and you just start realizing, geez, we're not perfect, and it starts creating a lot more of a humane element to us.
Mm.
And I think that's what our industry is all about, is being people and human.
This is amazing. And just to wrap up, I don't know if there's any final pieces of advice or just the last message you want to leave us with?
Oh, yeah. I mean, travel allows us to get rewarding experiences. Being able to and I mean, being in the business event sector and being out and about all the time allows us to experience so much. There's so many people that do not have this opportunity. And I think we take that for granted, is sometimes just to reflect. And sometimes I think to myself, geez, I was just in Bangkok a year ago, or I've been in Vegas. And then no matter how drab it seems at the time, that the city that you might be in or the destination could be, perceived as a bit boring, it's still the possibility to be able to do that. I think we sometimes take for granted. And these all culminate into having rich experiences that we can share with others. So that probably then allows us, back to your question of being able to then have conversations with people that they are interested in, and actually getting the point that they like, oh yeah, now that you say that, oh hold on, that I can resonate with it, or that you can. And I think that this is so important in our industry, that we get to experience that, but also experience really interesting people. Pamela, you and I, we've met, but we sort of trying to still figure out where we've met entirely. But at the same time, I find that feels like I know you a lifetime, but it feels like we've known each
Mhm.
other throughout our whole careers. And I almost say that for the rest of the people in my peer group, it's, I don't care where I've met them, or it feels like I've known them
Mhm.
forever. And that is what I really, really cherish, is I've got a group of people, and a really big group of people, that our industry allows us to lean on and share individual experiences and make us better people. So I think that's more than one word of advice, but it's my reflection on this whole journey, if you wish.
Oh, that's beautifully said. And I couldn't agree more. I really appreciated this conversation. It's been such a pleasure having you. Just to end it, where can we find you? Where online?
Oh, we're online. So, goodness. Yeah. So, obviously on LinkedIn, it's just the whole LinkedIn thing, Thomas Mauch. And then on Instagram, it would be not personal, but like as I've already said, but it's thomasza.jpg, like the JPEG file. I like photography, but I've also started getting into drone photography. And
Mm.
slowly I'll be getting into more first person viewing, so like point of view filming. But yeah, so on that, I'm just on those two socials. So no Facebook, no Twitter or X or any of those other modern TikToks or Snapchats. thomasza.jpg, and then Thomas Mauch at for the LinkedIn. So those are the two predominant handles you'll find me on, advocating the importance of the business event sector. I look forward to hearing and connecting with everyone. Any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Wonderful.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you very much, Mark.
I loved that talk with Thomas. I don't know how you felt about it, Mark.
Thomas was incredible. I met him for the first time today, and I just like, can we be friends? He's just such a personable guy. Really enjoyed having that discussion with him. What were some of your takeaways from our discussion?
Well, so many, but one that really struck me was his whole philosophy of well-being on the road. He is an active guy, but he's also just make sure he takes it when he's traveling. So with his ideas of selecting a gym that has great facilities, or else he's going for runs and seeing more of the destination. That stat on hydration and airplanes is absolutely going to stick with me, but also keeping in balance, knowing your own business, you might be indulging a little bit, but I thought he had excellent points on
Yeah, and I have to say the taxi scam story, it
that.
resonated with me a little, probably too close to home. I have been taxi scam, but I dare say you're not a real business traveler until you've been in at least one taxi scam. So I think it's happened to people more than they care to admit. I'm glad he got his
Right.
money back, and I don't think I got my money back when I was taxi scammed. So good on him for that, and good for him for sharing the story. And I know you also loved what he talked about when it came to networking.
Oh, I did. That absolutely resonated. As I said, and told you this beforehand, that he's an excellent networker, but most in the most genuine way. And I think his takeaway of just simply, I mean, it's the advice we all hear, but it's really true. Be authentic, be yourself, just put yourself out there. Sometimes it's time for business, sometimes it's just time to get to know a little bit about the person that you're dealing with, because humans want to deal with humans at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think his points about just making genuine human connections are one of the most critical things in networking. It's not complicated. Just connect with people on a human level. So we're so glad to have had Thomas here with us today. Looking forward to other interviews that we've got booked in the near future. And so with that, Pamela, tell the good folks where they can find us.
Yes. Please visit us on our Meetings and Miles LinkedIn page, or you can check out our personal accounts, Pamela Wilton, and Mark D. Peters 17. As well, we will also include Thomas's information in the show notes.
Awesome. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Safe travels.
Bye.